Hello everybody and welcome to Workshop Studios. Today's project is this picture right here. So I'm going to scooch over like this so you can see what I'm looking at. We're replacing a lid or a top of a storage cabinet next to a fireplace. It's an old one that's got nasty upholstery on it, and we want to update it so that it looks more like the rest of the house. The house has just been redone with new wood floors, and that's right behind me. These are the leftover pieces. So what I want to do is see if we can't make a new lid for that storage cabinet out of this leftover oak flooring, and that's right down there. And I'll show you what I'm going to be doing with it here in just a second. Here's a little better shot of the leftover, and you can see it's all various sizes, which typical of hardwood floor install, you see it sort of puzzled in there. But I've selected out the ones that are long enough so we can make the lid in one piece. So you don't have a puzzle piece to it. So what I'm trying to do is get it the right length. And this particular one is going to be 52 this way, or as long as we can get it, and then about 18 or 19 this way, depending on how we want to do this project. So the first step is, like I've done here, is I've got them all organized. So the long ones are here. Those are the shorter ones. We don't need those right now. We have another project for those, by the way, and I'll show you that as a follow-on project. But right now we want to try to get these glued together and as flat as possible so that it saves us a lot of sanding work. So a little introduction to hardwood floors. This particular type of flooring is a solid piece of wood. This is white oak. There's red oak and white oak. This is white oak, so it's a lighter color, if you might, of oak. And it's been cut into these strips, which are about 2¼ inches wide. And there are ones that are cut wider than this. But this is not an engineered wood. This is a solid piece of wood. And the way they cut it is what's called tongue and groove. So there's a groove down here. Can you see that? And this is the tongue part here. There's the tongue. You can see it better that way. And when they install these floors, they push those two together. And in terms of floor install, the idea is you want this surface to not have any nails on it. So when they install it in a regular flooring situation, they're going to be, I believe that way they do that is they have two pieces. Let's say this one's already hooked down. This one's about to come into it. They have a special nailer that will put a nail down through this groove and along the board that holds this one in place because it's already been pushed into the next board. And then you come up here, get this one close, and you have a kicker. And as you kick it, it shoots a nail down in there and pushes this together. And what that nail is doing is holding this down to the subfloor. So if we want to consider this the subfloor, it would be a piece of plywood or something. It now holds these boards down pretty flat. So the whole point of me telling you that is that the way I'm going to do this is that I don't have a subfloor on this one. And so really the only thing that'll hold these together, and if you look across here, you can see these are going up and down. They're quite a bit of variation. But if I push them all together with their tongue and groove in, right now this particular board here has, see there, I'm putting my finger up against it. There's a bit of a gap there, but that's because this hasn't been pushed together. So what I'm going to do is I've got my bar clamps here set up so that I can push them together. And then I will be able to see if these will lay flat. So I'm just dry fitting these right now. If they go flat, then what I'll do is put glue in between each of these. So if I go back to my small pieces here, I can show you easier. So I'll be putting glue in here and then pushing them together. And that glue will then hold these together. Now when that tongue and groove is pushed together, the surface is pretty flat. So I'm hoping that when I push these together, the surface will go flat or flat-ish. And then we'll put the glue in there. We'll hook them together. We're not going to nail these because we don't have a subfloor because this is going to be a lid on a cabinet storage. So we're going to hope that the tongue and groove will hold it flat, and then we can glue it, and then we can start to cut it to size and get it put into place in that little storage cabinet. All right, this is why we dry fit. This looks like a big mess here, but I'll show you what I'm trying to do. So what I have are these bar clamps coming to squeeze the wood together this way. And I've put this ratchet strap across to keep them from bowing up like this. But even with that, I'm not getting quite what I'm looking for, and it was bowing up too much, so I put these pieces of wood under the ratchet strap to hold it down flat. And then I'm ending up having to loosen the bar clamps and then just tighten them enough to make the wood become level. This wood across here as level as possible. Let me show you a close-up of what I'm talking about. All right, so I've put this clamp across here, and I hope you can see there's a gap under this right now. Can you see that gap? And if I tighten this, there's a bar clamp on the other side of this, so there's the bar clamp. If I tighten this bar clamp up with my camera down here, you'll see this gap start to disappear. So let me pull it so that it starts to, oops. So it is working, but it's doing just a little bit there. Let me show you on the bar clamp. It might be easier to see it that way. So there's a little, you can see daylight under there. And as I tighten it up, you see that daylight disappear, and I'm going to loosen it. There it goes. Now you can see it disappear. And so this bar clamp, being a pipe, it's going to be straight. And that tells me that I'm pulling this up just enough to make that wood as flat as possible. You can see across the bar clamp, it's actually pretty good. So I think that's what I'm going to end up doing, is that I will go ahead and start gluing these pieces together, get them all pushed together, and I'll tighten them up with the bar clamps, even though it'll make it uneven. And then I will loosen them and put all of this the ratchet strap and everything on it to make it so that it's as flat as possible. Because remember, this is going to be a lid on a cabinet. So we want to have a pretty flat surface. And we will do some sanding to flatten it out as well. I do not have a giant planer, so I can't plane it down like some people have in their shops. But I think this way we will get pretty darn close. So let's get started with that. Before I start gluing, I thought I'd just do one more, show you how much the boards aren't straight. Here's one that is, these are just sitting here loose. So there's one that is bowed down, or that one's bowed up, I don't know which, but this one right here, hopefully you can see it. This one right here is bowed way up. You can see it. But once I lock them into place by pushing this down, oops, so you can see it. Once I lock these into place by pushing this down, it'll smooth this out a lot. But then I'm gonna take another approach where I'm gonna clamp a board across the top of this with some C-clamps. I think that'll help straighten them out as well. So let's get to gluing. By the way, I'm gonna use Tite Bond Ultimate 3. It's good stuff. Lots and lots of folks use this, and it should last forever. All right, so I think that's pretty well done, and you saw me checking it out with a level, and I'm happy with that. That's pretty good. Yep, all the way across, it looks pretty good. All right, now we just let it dry. And while it's drying, I'm sure I have about 10 more projects to work on. So it's the next day, everything feels good. Let's take it apart and see if the glue did what it was supposed to. Well, it looks pretty good. Yep, I don't feel a lot of places sticking up. Let's try our T-square on it here. Yeah, that's pretty good. It's got a little bit of a gap over on that side. You can see the light coming through. That's pretty good. A little gap over there. A little gap. So that side over there, this side here, seems to have gotten a little bit of a bow in it. But, you know, for a cabinet top, I think it's going to be just fine. And with some sanding, we'll probably never notice that. So now we want to cut it to size and trim off this edge, and we'll probably trim off this edge here, and then over on this side there's an actual kind of gap. But what I want to do eventually is put a rounded edge on it, a bullnose if you might, all the way around it, and we'll get it sanded flat and smooth, and we'll see how that goes. Oh, and the other thing is that we're going to put some supports on it, 1, 2, 3 probably, and screw them in, and that'll help the whole lid become more stable. Makes it a little heavier, but I think it'll turn out to be a good addition to make sure the lid is always strong enough. When you're lifting it up, you don't want it to break in here, obviously. So the glue probably is strong enough to hold it, but we'll do belt and suspenders, and we'll put some braces on the inside. All right, so I've trimmed it off and done a rough edge on it, if you want to call it that. Just a bullnose edge, like I said. And what I want to do now is put it on top of where it's going. Just make sure everything looks good before I do any final cuts. So let's go ahead and look at that. Well, it's been about 4 months, and I'm just getting back to this. And this is what happened. I forgot to put the bottom on it, so all of that hard work to make it flat, and it bowed up a bit. I think we can get that straightened out, though. So now what we want to do is measure this out and cut the top so that it's ready to mount on the cabinet. All right, so here's the old top on it running across here, and you can see I've already marked where I want to cut here. This pencil line I think is a good spot to start. And then what I want to do is mark this off so that I get this piece cut. And then we can start to shape them, and I'll put the supports to draw this down so that this is no longer bowed like that. I'll put supports underneath it. And what the other thing we're going to be doing is matching this depth on this top. Right now this is not nearly as deep. I'll get those two in there. You can see this needs to be down deeper, but we'll be using some of the other, let me grab one here, some of this other flooring material to go ahead and add to that base, and that should bring us up to pretty close to this same depth. So we'll get to cutting here. Okay, so the next phase is I've clamped it all down. Got all those cut and sized and everything. Just a little oversized on this edge, but everything else is matched up. That one needs to slide over there. And so now what I'm doing is drilling holes. There's a little one there. There's one there. And then after that, I countersink, and there's a screw in there and a screw there. So I've done that edge, and I'm working my way down here. So I'm going to keep going, and I'll show you what that looks like. By the way, I've marked my drill with this blue tape. That's what's on there, so I don't want to go any deeper than that, or I'll go right through. So that's what that's all about. All right, so all of the screws are in there, but I need to glue it. And what I was trying to do here was to dry fit, make sure everything's all lined up, and then I'll take all the screws out and put glue down, and we'll lock it in place. All right, well, there they are all glued up and laid out like they're supposed to. So this will be the back part here, and this is the front part. So this is the actual lid here. This is just sort of a place where we're going to hook the hinges onto in between here. So all glued up, looking pretty good. Now it's time to finish these edges off. We want to route them. This is a little bit of routed here. Oops, little rounded here, but we're going to do a better job of routing on these. This front part, this is always an interesting challenge on a lid. Do you round this bit back here or leave them square? And I think square right now. So I'll just round along the edges out front like this, all the way around. And I'll leave this one square because this goes up against a wall. I need to clean this one up just a little bit here. And then we'll sand it very, very nicely and put a finish on it. And then we have to install. All right, so what I'm doing now is just trying to plane these edges, if you want. I'm not using a planer, sort of, but I'm using a belt sander like this, which has a pretty wide sanding base to it. Acts a bit like a planer. And so I'm going to get these edges pretty even and try to take some of these kind of burn marks and saw marks out of it. So I'm working my way around it. I also am using, I did a little bit of sawing, but I'm trying to get this one to be pretty much exactly the same length as that one. So when you see it visually, they'll line up perfectly. Kind of give a sense that it's a continuous piece of oak, if we can. So I'm going to keep working my way through that. I don't think I'll show you my sanding. It's kind of boring, so. So now I'm taking the same belt sander and just going across the top. This is really good. I mean, when they make these boards, they're pretty even across here, but there's just a little bit of variation. So we'll use the belt sander to kind of get them all nice and flat, and then we'll use the orbital sander to really polish it. A couple of woodworkers tips. One is using a belt sander. They are very aggressive. So you never want to go across the grain or it leaves marks all over it. Go with the grain. You probably saw me going back and forth. I learned that lesson the hard way. The other thing is, after I'm done sanding, I like to keep this fine powder for just a little while, just in case there's some defects, especially along the edges where I need to fill in. So I can mix a little glue with this and kind of putty them into the holes. I've already done some fixing, but I'm sure there'll be some more to do. So with a grain, keep the powder or keep the sawdust for just a little while. So for me, always an interesting challenge. This is my router table. There's the router bit, and that's what I want to do to round it off. You can see it there. There's the rounding. So the question is, do I use the router table and run this big piece along there, or do I take the router out and freehand it along there? Now this, if you don't know routers, that's what this little bearing is for, is it rides up against this surface here, and so that you get a nice even cut. And I'm kind of leaning to freehanding because I can go across this and take little passes and take a little bit off at a time, because oak is hard wood and it'll take that cutter a while to get through it. Plus, when I'm manipulating a really heavy board like this, it's a little harder to control than a nice light, router that's sliding across the top. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to freehand it. I think it'll give us a good look either way, but I think freehanding would be a little safer, maybe. I think. Let's do it. Here's the router bit I want to use. I don't think I can sort of get you there. So it's a nice round edge. That's what I'm looking for. And what I usually do is test it out on a scrap piece of wood. So this one's fine. So I'll test it and make sure that that edge looks good. And then I might start doing a little bit in here, but I think I might take the rest of it outside because this is going to make a big old mess. All right, so it's a nice round edge on there. That's looking good. I think I'll try that on my piece over here. We'll see how that looks on that one. Now I'm going to remind myself I'm only doing the edges here and out in front and along that edge. I'm not going to do these edges here for right now. Now that we have seen that it fits where it's supposed to fit, it's the final touches, and it's going to look terrible. So this is where I'm filling in all of the little cracks and crevices. This was a spot where the two pieces of oak just didn't come together very well. So I've put a sliver of wood down there with some glue. And then the rest of these are too small for a piece of wood like that. So what I've done is taken the sawdust. It's very fine sawdust. This is from sanding, not from sawing. And then mix it with a little glue. And then just go in and patch all these up. And again, looks terrible. There's some more of it. Some more along there. And then I've had to patch this end just a little bit. That'll be fine. We'll sand that down and it should be just fine, I hope. And then once we do that, we will get a very fine sand on the whole thing and put some Varathane on it. Well, the next step actually is I need to dry fit new piano hinges. These are obviously long gone. So we won't be using these. We have a brand new one. But what I want to do is get it fit and see how it looks when I bring the two edges together. So the hinge will fit on here. Here's the new hinge. The hinge will fit on here. And I just want to see how well this all fits together and how much of a gap it leaves between this back piece, the solid piece, and the actual lid. If I need to, I can probably route this down so this hinge will sit down and allow the door to open still, but I have to do a little bit of fitting on that one to see if that'll work. All right, so glue was dry, cleaned it up, sanded it. You can see really there's a little bit here. You can see a little bit of it, but I think we're close enough that we can go ahead and do a Varathane coat after we get this all sanded. I've still got a little more cleaning up to do. You can see this in here needs to be sanded, but I did get that back one all cleaned up as well. So now it's a matter of going through and getting, I think, to 400 grit sandpaper, and that'll give me a nice shiny, well, I should say a smooth surface on the wood, and then we can start putting some finish on it. Working on installing this piano hinge. So I've already got it on this top one here. I haven't screwed it in here yet, but I think, I haven't done this very often, so I'm kind of winging it, but I think what I want to do, I think I've already got it wrong. If you can see right here, I want that to be actually centered on this, not there. So I'm going to have to take those screws out and bring that hinge down so it's centered on the middle of this, not up here on this one. So I might try just a few screws in there, see how it hinges with it like that. But the idea was I wanted the hinge to be down a little low on this part. So this is the back part of it. I wanted it to be down a little low so that you wouldn't see the hinge sticking up. But I'm gonna try it, put a few screws in this one, and then we'll see what it looks like closed. Well, that didn't work. You can see it's not even level. So I've got to reposition this, but it does hinge, so that's good. So I'm gonna check this out, do a little more research, see if I can figure out how to install this so that it looks better. Now I am thinking I might recess this hinge, meaning I'll kind of do a route edge, and this could be hidden, but I'm going to look up how to hide a piano hinge. Well, after some research, there's a lot of fancy ways to try and install these, but I don't think there's a way to actually hide it so you can't see the top of the hinge. But there is a way to make it so you don't have this gap, and that is to route a little recess here so that the hinge, the pieces of wood come together, and then this hinge will sit flush with the top of the wood. So I think I'll do that. I'll go ahead and just route a little depth in this, and that hinge will then sit in there. And these edges will then be flush, both flush, and there won't be a gap. So let me go ahead and get that done. All right, so I have my router table set up to give me that mortise. I hope you can see this, but I've already cut it so you can see how that slips in there. I've done my measurements to try and get it pretty close. So that's the new mortise there for the hinge to sit down in. So that's got that little bit of a lip. And I'll do it on both sides, and then we'll reinstall the hinge, and hopefully that does it. There it is, mortised in place, and it's leveled across the top here. And we've reduced the gap down. And I think that's probably as close as we're going to get it right there. But I will install it and see if we can't pull that a little closer. All right, so I brought them inside overnight. Didn't want them to get all wet with dew or anything. And it's feeling pretty good, but the first coat usually leaves it a little bumpy. And so it is a satin finish, so it's not going to be super glossy, but it looks good. But I think what I'll do is a very light sanding, super light, maybe a 800 grit or 1,000 grit sand, just to knock off the tops of it, and I'll do one more coat, and that should leave it pretty darn smooth. It's nice now, and I would say at this point, it's pretty well fully protected, but I would like to do one more coat, get it sanded down, so let's do that. All right, so 1,000 grit, you can see it there. And this is a wet or dry. They tend to not come as regular sandpaper anymore when you get above a certain grit. And then I'm going to just use a foam sanding block. That's all this is all about, and I'll just go over it lightly and do that, and on the corners I'll do it without the sanding block. All right, we got both coats on, and we're ready to put the hinge on. And what I've done this time is I've just put a cardboard box under it that's the right height so that I can get the hinge lined up pretty close to what it needs to be, and then just start putting the screws in. Okay, there it is with all the hinges in it, or the screws in the hinge, and seems to open up just fine. Closes just fine. And what we're going to be doing is hooking it on with these brackets, and we're going to install these lid supports, which should keep the lid almost weight free, so you can just open it and it'll stay there and close it, hopefully. So I think our next step is we'll go to the install mode. All right, so here we go. There's the, just sitting on there right now. So you can see, there's the, slides back in there, opens up just fine. Now what we need to do is attach this part back in here. I need to attach this to this box, and then I'll install the I'll call them struts or pneumatic struts, so this thing doesn't slam down. I brought a selection of different angles because I wasn't sure exactly quite what would work here. So I kind of want to stick with probably these. I think that's the right size for this. So let's do that, a check on that. I'm going to mark in here where the edge of that will go. Here's my line that I marked right here. I'm going to put this out so I can get to it. All right, let's see how that does. Yep, good. Now I just got to go down here and screw this in down here without that thing falling on my head. All right, so for the instructions, this is always a tricky one when you're installing these kinds of hinges, because I'll show you real quick here. If you can see this, is that you're trying to get all of these angles correct here and here, and they give you these measurements down here. I went with basically kind of the 105 is what I'm looking for, because I want that to open up all the way. And so I'm using something between this 97 and 72 and 103 and 78 here. And those are these numbers here. That's, let's see if I can hold my light here so you can see what I'm doing. It's this one here and this distance here. So easier to see it on here is the distance from inside here out to here, and I measured that, and that's right there. And then the distance from this edge here up to here, and I measured that. Just move around here and you can see some of my marks. So there's one measurement right there, and that goes down to that's the center of this, and the other one is to the center down here. You can see that. So let me go ahead and screw that in. So there it is. Both of those support hinges are in there. Opens up nice and closes nice. So I'm going to call that D for done, and thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next video. So please like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.